We can torque that to spec, and the next thing we're going to do is put on the heat shields. This is the mounting tab for one of the hose clamps that would go through. One thing that you want to do when you're doing your mock-up, I guess, is determine which direction you want to insert your hose clamp. So for this one here in the back, I know that I want the threaded part or the nut face to be facing downward, so that when it goes on the pipe I can tighten it from below. Okay, so I'll just kind of show you here how we do it, get it over the pipe. Okay, there's a heat shield on there, so I know that there was one here, here, and here. Okay, so I'm going to put this one on so it faces here. This one I'll have it facing this way, and this one I'll have facing down. So I'll go ahead and put those clamps on this heat shield, and go ahead and get them all started so that all the hose clamps are essentially engaged but loose, and then we'll snug them all down kind of evenly as we go. Okay, now that I've got all my heat shield clamps on, my front and rear heat shield, I'm going to put my two O2 sensors in place here, thread them in the back of the pipe. I guess it's important to know that before I pull them off the stock system, I marked front and rear so I know which one goes into which pipe. I basically did that by taking a scratch awl and scratching a little R into one of the sides of the O2 sensors. So find my little R here and put it in the rear header. And these just take a 9/16 wrench to tighten. Good and snug. If you got a bike that's got, a lot of miles on it, probably not a bad idea to put some anti-seize on the threads of the O2 sensor and in the header pipe as well. This is pretty much a new bike, so we're just going together. And I kind of turned the O2 sensor backwards a couple of turns so that the wires were kind of pre-wound, so when it does tighten up, they're not all twisted. Okay, and then I'm going to stick the wires back in the wire loom here. There's two plastic clips, or one rather, and make sure that they're not going to chafe or burn on anything. Then we can go on to put the heat shield on the other side. Alright, here's the third small heat shield for the left hand side of the bike. I'm just kind of looking at the back so that it's evenly spaced around the header. And tighten the first clamp down. Again, this is just a 1/4 inch nut driver. Could use a straight screwdriver as well. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is install these plugs because this bike doesn't have the large O2 sensors on it. And we're not ready to tune it yet, so before we get over to the dyno, we need to have some plugs in the holes. And it's a good idea to anti-seize these as well. Alright, the next step is to install the mufflers, and one important thing to note that when you go from a Road Glide 2-in-1 header system, stock system, to the S&S Power Tune Duals, of course we talked about you need to remove that bracket, but some things that you need in addition to your header pipes and everything is on the left hand side of the bike you do not have this hanger bracket and you do not have this rubber grommet, so those are a couple of additional parts that you'll need to purchase from your local Harley dealer. Additionally, if you had a 2-in-1 exhaust system, you only had one exhaust clamp, okay, so you'll have to purchase an exhaust clamp as well, because you can reuse the one that you have, but of course you don't have two of them, so you need to have the additional one. So you need to purchase, in addition to the system, you need to purchase this hanger bracket, the rubber isolator that goes around that bracket, and as well one of these hose or one of these pipe clamps to make your system install completely. I guess we'll go ahead and put on the mufflers. Another thing to note is when we were putting on the heat shields, we went ahead and tightened up the flanges on the heads because if you don't tighten those flanges before you put the heat shields on, you won't be able to get your socket in there too. So we went ahead and torqued them to spec. So everything forward here is essentially installed and torqued to spec, tight, and so all we have left is to put on the mufflers. So mufflers, pretty straightforward. You want to orient your clamp so that it's facing, you know, the right direction. It's not going to interfere with the heat shield. And slide it over the header pipe. And back here you want to look at the pipe or mounting hardware. You want to center the bracket in between these two mounts on the muffler. So right now it needs to go forward about a ½ an inch. There we go. Center it on there, and then go ahead and put your Loctite on your fasteners, and we're ready to go here. So now once you get them on there and torqued, you can still move the muffler, so that's not a concern. And the muffler already has a threaded insert in it, so you don't have to hold anything on the back side. Torque wrench. Alright, now the next thing we want to do is make sure again that we're centered here. You can move the muffler. So what we're looking for here is basically to turn the muffler so that it's flat, you know, and square with the world, if you will. Okay, the last thing here is to get this clamp on this muffler tightened up. And we go to the other side. Alright. Install the left-hand muffler. Again, you got to slide it on so it's centered on the hanger bracket back here. Notice I had the bolts already in the hanger bracket, so I didn't have to fumble around with them. Okay, now that we're centered in that bracket front to back, we need to look at it from the rear and see that it is level. And then the last thing we need to do is tighten this clamp. You might need to get this clamp a little snug so that it's not so easily tilted when you go to tighten it, because it may have moved here as I was tightening it as well. Because I can easily move it still. And this is just a 9/16 again. Okay, look at it from the rear. It's hanging down a little bit. Looks pretty good. There we go. All right, so probably the last, one of the more important things that you need to know is that you got to wipe down the system before you start the bike, or you will pretty much ruin a set of pipes, because the fingerprints will burn on, and there really isn't much you can do to get them off. I mean, you can scrub and buy products, but it's a lot easier and smarter to wipe the pipes down before you start the bike.